Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting experts straight talk in your ear. These podcasts deliver great interviews with industry leaders and Zweig Group's 3 decades of invaluable research, leadership, management, marketing, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter Podcasts let you develop personally and professionally, wherever you are.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and guess what? He's back. Mark Zweig is here with us today, and I finally had a chance to corral him for a few podcast episodes, and today we're going to talk about an issue that he has brought up several times before. He's written about it over and over again, and I don't think there's anybody more qualified to talk about reducing the stress of travel than Mark. I know in the past he has spent time flying back and forth from Boston to California on a weekly basis. He's been there, done that, seen everything change, including the drastic change with regard to security after 9/11. And Mark certainly has a lot of ideas and a lot of insight in this area, especially for you young up-and-coming designers, architects, engineers that are starting to get on the road for your firm. You know, how do you make travel work? How do you kind of keep the balance going, maintain things while maintaining your home life, et cetera? But Mark has he wrote an article recently in the February 19th issue of the Zweig Letter publication, which he talked about reducing the stress of travel. And so, Mark, we're so glad to have you on today, and I'd love for you to enlighten our listening audience about some of the tips and tricks of getting the most out of traveling and how to be more efficient about that process.
I don't know if I can tell you how to get the most out of it, but I can tell you how to be efficient and make it less stressful.
Well, that's cool. Well, we'll take that. So there were a couple of things that you mentioned that really, in your mind, are practices that you try to initiate every time you do travel. One of the things you said right away was eat before you get on the plane, and the importance of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you never know. You could have delays. You could sit out there on the tarmac for 3 hours. Anything can happen. Any delay then makes your connection difficult, which means you probably won't be able to eat. Keeps you from being cranky.
Yeah. Yeah. So. And I think also, just as a good reminder, it's always good to buy a bottle of water to take on your trip with you, because you can get really dehydrated on those planes. Oh, yeah. And certainly you want to do that after you clear security, because otherwise they will just take it and throw out your brand new bottle of Dasani, which nobody wants to have happen. So,
no. Or even better yet, it could be Fiji water.
Yeah, exactly, which is even more expensive than Dasani. So, Fiji water, by the way, is the water of choice for Mark Zweig. So if you're ever with him, and invite him to have a crisp, cold bottle of Fiji water, and I'm sure he'll take you up on that. So, how about just the technology that you use when you travel? I know you mentioned kind of getting the airline app that can kind of help you when you run into delays and stuff. But how do you use your airline application?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got to have all the airline apps, and it tells you if the gates change or you're delayed or where your baggage is. It's crazy not to do that. You can get your check-in online easily. You got to have it. I mean, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
But I think more importantly is have plenty of batteries for your cell phone or your laptop.
Right.
I'm big on the auxiliary batteries.
Yeah.
Because you never know. It's so difficult. It's getting easier to charge now.
Right.
More planes have charging ports.
Yeah.
But what I found is those USB ports are barely charge your stuff. They're super weak.
They are. If your cord will even stay in there, because a lot of times they're so worn out that as soon as you plug your cord in, it just falls out.
The AC ones are terrible.
Yeah.
They're always worn out.
Yeah.
And that's a huge problem. I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
So I'm always like spreading out my little tongs so they fit in there.
Right.
Reaching down and holding it. I'd rather just have really good batteries.
Yeah.
They don't cost that much. You can get one for $50 that'll really do a great job for anything all day.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you listening, when Mark's referring to those rechargeable batteries that are really beneficial to have, you can find them on Amazon in a variety of prices, a variety of sizes, and a lot of them will recharge your smartphone 2, 3, even sometimes 4 times in a day. And you never have to physically find an electrical outlet.
Which is what I need to make it through the whole day.
Exactly.
I can burn through that entire battery and 100% charge on my phone in one day.
Yeah. You do qualify as a power user of your phone. So you need that. So yeah, no, that's awesome. You also mentioned something else. And I know for us living out here in the hinterlands of the great state of Arkansas, taking the first flight out of Dodge in the morning is always a good idea.
I think it's a good idea no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Because if there are delays, you've got a chance to still get there.
Yeah.
And, if things are in trouble, if there are weather problems, whatever, those things just build up throughout the day. They just get worse and worse.
Yeah.
And you'll have more options the sooner you leave.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So how about on the plane? I mean, in terms of kind of making I've traveled with you numerous times, but I know that you mentioned that, trying to get your seats in advance is a big help, in terms of that. But any specifics about seats and seating arrangements when you're traveling?
I mean, I like to sit in the aisle so I can get up and go to the bathroom if I need to.
Right.
Or if I have somebody next to me who weighs 2 or 3 times what the average person does, I can get some.
Which happens quite a bit.
It does happen. I can get some fresh air by leaning into the aisle. It's just, I feel trapped if I'm not in that aisle seat. I also like the emergency exit rows, though.
Yeah.
If you can get
more
that,
leg room.
I call that poor man's first class.
Exactly. And
so that's always my favorite. I don't know why anyone wants a bulkhead seat. I think a bulkhead is the worst seat because you have nowhere to go with your stuff.
Yeah.
Or, if you're not on that plane first, which is another thing I like to do.
Yeah.
So I know I've got overhead storage. Where do you put your stuff?
Yeah.
Bulkhead.
And you bring up a good point. And certainly I do know that a lot of times, depending on the airline that you're flying, a lot of times the flight attendants will be helpful to help those that are flying bulkhead to find a place for their items. And especially if it's the bulkhead that separates first class from economy, a lot of times there's usually room in the overhead bins in first class. So they'll take your items and put them up there, which is nice. If you're lucky. So you may not go first class, but your bags will. So,
Or they put them behind you, and then you have to wait till every single person leaves the plane, and then you get your stuff, which takes another extra 10 minutes. To empty that plane, and that could be the 10 minutes you need to make your connection.
Right, and you have to kind of stay on that. So there are a number of strategic things that you need to be thinking about when booking your travel, getting seats close to the front, making sure that you can get on early, which is something that Mark alluded to. And for those of you that may not have airline status, if you're not a medallion member with Delta or one of the other programs that American or United offers, there are other ways for you to get status to get on the plane early. Certainly, if you have served in the military, whenever they call in for either active duty or people that have served in the military, a lot of times they're letting those individuals board first, which is helpful because it gives you space in the overhead bins. The other thing that you can do is to get an affinity credit card, which will provide you with that ability to board early as well. I know with, like, for example, Delta has a partnership with American Express as an example. And with that American Express partnership, if I didn't have status with Delta, I could use my Delta Amex card, book my travel, and I would automatically get Sky privileges, which would allow me to board after first class. So yeah, it helps. I mean, every little bit helps.
It does. You want to try not to do the gate check thing because or leave your bag at the on the jetway, so you pick it up in a long ass line.
I feel so bad for all those people that have to do that.
Me too.
So
it's like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to pack light, man. I want to not be waiting around for my bag.
Yeah. And speaking of which, and that kind of goes to my next thing is it's always helpful to dress in layers, even if you're going from a warm destination to a cold destination, or from a cold destination to a warm destination. It gets cold on those planes. It gets drafty, and you may not want to put a airplane blanket on you that has been used by 50 million other people, with all of the germs and everything that are just traveling around. Sometimes it's just better to put on an extra layer when you travel, and you'll find it's just much more comfortable for you. And that goes into also packing. The biggest mistake that I see, and even I see some business travelers. I know, Mark, you're not a big fan of the rollerboard luggage. And I know you like to travel kind of like with a soft side case that can easily fit in the overhead.
Yes.
But that's been, you've practiced that for years, right? I mean, yeah. So
I roll my shirts up, by the way, and
right.
They come out fine.
Yeah.
And then when you get wherever you're getting, if you have any wrinkles, hang them on that hook on the back of the bathroom door, turn the shower on hot, steam them out.
For 20 minutes, you're good to go.
Man,
yeah.
You don't even need 20 minutes.
You know, there are a ton of tricks that you can employ when it comes to travel that will allow you to literally pack like you're going on a safari and jam everything into a small bag, and then come out with all your stuff looking like $1 million. What I will do for this particular episode in our show notes is I'm going to provide a couple of YouTube videos from some expert packers that show individuals how to pack properly, because I think there is an art to it. I just laugh when I see people get on the plane with all this crap, and I'm like, where are you going with this? You know, it's the worst. So, trust me when I say this, especially for business travelers, less is more. You can't, you cannot, try to have an outfit for everything. And I'm always amazed that when I look at people like Jamie Claire Kaiser, our director of consulting, who's always on the road. And if you saw what she travels with, it's like, man, she's basically carrying nothing, but she puts it so well together, and she always looks like $1 million no matter where she goes.
Yep.
And so there is certainly an art to it. And for those of you that are just starting to hit the road now and early on in your career, you can do it. Trust me when I say this, it's not that difficult. And we will provide some additional resources and information and video in the show notes so that you can see that. Another thing that you mentioned, Mark, and I know that I think you've recently done this, but you should get TSA pre-status if you don't already have it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know what TSA pre-status means, it just means that you no longer have to take off your belt or your shoes or anything else and be patted down or anything like that when it comes to going through security. Now, they still do random checks just to go ahead and kind of upset the apple cart and make sure that people aren't so used to going through freely through security. But I rarely, if ever, have a problem with TSA pre. And I actually went one step further, and I got what's called Clear, which is like TSA pre on steroids. It's TSA pre coupled with the fact that I can like walk anywhere, and all I have to do is biometrically give my fingertip to the little kiosk, and they take me right up to the front, and I go right through security, and there's no issues whatsoever.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and now Clear, and I'll put a link on there. Clear is available now on about 30 airports across the country, some of the busiest airports. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever been in LA on a Friday afternoon and going through the security line, there's easily a couple hundred people on the line. You could miss your flight.
Yeah.
So, it allows me, having TSA pre, first of all, allows you to not have to feel like you've got to rush to the airport so early because you're worried about the lines. That's not an issue. Between possibly having some type of preferred status with the airline that allows you to board early, you don't have to worry about a lot of those issues that come up for the normal traveler. And for those of you listening that have to get on the road and go see clients, this will just make your life so much easier. You also mentioned something else, which is actually kind of important. You said carry all your prescriptions and other drugs you need with you on the plane.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you don't want to lose your bag if you checked it.
Right.
And,
and some people still do check their luggage.
They do.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you have to. You got so much stuff.
Right.
You're going to give a seminar or something. You got books that you have to check or whatever. It's possible. You'll be checking, but don't leave your prescriptions there. I keep my toiletry bag packed permanently.
Yeah.
I've got everything in there. Prescriptions, Advil, Tylenol PM, Band-Aids, whatever you're going to need.
Yeah.
It's all there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, that way, if you don't have to like gather your stuff up. I don't understand why people do that. Like, get 2 of everything. Deodorant, whatever,
just
razors.
Have it and be ready to go. Yeah. I did that a long time ago too. That's a great tip, is to basically, I actually have a personal DOP kit or a toiletry kit just for when I travel with family. And then I have one for business that I always make sure it's fully stocked and ready to go. I don't have to think about, do I have this stuff in it? It's already in there.
Exactly.
I just drop it in my bag and then I go. And it's very small too.
Sure,
that's the other thing. You don't need a lot, because there's some hints and tips there, especially if you don't have to carry the big can of shaving cream or anything like that. I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is that actually the conditioner that the hotel leaves in in your room for your hair actually works really well on shaving.
I never bring shaving.
I mean, it's there are some really cool little tips, and don't carry a straight edge razor on the plane.
No,
because that will get pulled quickly. They may not like that. So,
I can see that.
Yeah, they're box cutters and straight edge razors. I mean,
does anybody use a straight edge razor?
I do. I shave with a straight edge razor. Lord. So yeah, I like to get a nice, smooth, clean
scary,
shave.
Man.
Yeah, it is. It's like a Ginsu knife. So
good Lord.
So
you're like a Victorian era
exactly. Just lather that thing up. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
A leather shaving belt too.
I have a little stone that I sharpen it with. But yes, I do that. Yeah, you have to be very careful. Trust me. If you don't have a steady hand, it's not something I would recommend. So
I'm not going to be doing that.
So
I'll stick with the cheap Bic razors.
Right. So last couple of things that you mentioned: get a noise canceling headphone.
Oh man, that's the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
I tell you, twice I've had them.
Yeah.
I have a set now. I had a set before. My last wife took them from me.
Oh man. Okay.
She decided she liked them, and I gave them to her. But,
okay.
But anyway, no, I got a set now. They're just fantastic.
Yeah.
Put you in another world.
Right.
And just all the noise goes away. It instantly reduces stress.
Screaming babies, whatever it is, you can just put it aside. So.
Oh no. Yeah. I once had some crazy old bleach blonde gal with hot pants on who was going to meet her boyfriend she met online in Las Vegas.
Oh, Lord.
And she wouldn't stop talking. And the moment I put those headphones on was like the sweetest moment of my life.
Yeah. There's nothing gone. Like it. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, that can help you out considerably. There are some really great noise canceling headphones out there. They're not that expensive anymore.
No,
the technology is good. I've actually always used Bose, and they work really well. And I carry a portable pair that I always have with me, and I just throw them on, and they're rechargeable. I'll put a link to those in the show notes. If you like those, check them out. And finally, when you get to your destination, I know you're a big fan of not having to rent a car wherever you're going. And there are times when it calls to have a car, but more often than not nowadays with Uber and Lyft, you have a car at your disposal all the time.
It's so much more convenient.
Yeah.
I mean, I just get the apps and just call them.
Yeah.
They're so much better than the cabs. They've got GPS. You don't have to get any cash out.
Right.
They know where the hell they're going.
Yeah.
It's just, the cars are better.
Yep.
You don't get in that LTD that's got 680,000 miles and the rear
or
end's
the Crown
hauling.
Vic.
Yeah. And the AC's broken. I've had all that.
Right.
Get in the Lumina at George Bush in Houston. And you're going to fly to, and you got to drive 50 miles to, wherever you're going in Houston. And, and the guy's got no AC. He doesn't tell you till you're leaving the airport property.
It's not good. It's not good at all. So
that's happened to me.
Oh, I know. I know. Yeah. And you're somewhere where it's hot. So that's the issue.
Uber is great. I love it. It's so convenient. And you know exactly where the car is, who it's going to be, how long it's going to be before they get there.
Yeah.
You see it all on your app.
Just a piece of advice, especially for those of you that are renting with Uber and Lyft. Certainly, I want to recommend, especially if you're a woman, to double check their license plate numbers that they match on your app as well as the car that's picking you up. and the person. I've had situations as a guy where I've had somebody pick me up, and that person's picture wasn't the person on there, and it turned out it was somebody working with somebody else as a partnership, but they picked me up. And you just want to be mindful of that. And you know, I'm a guy, and so I feel like I can handle myself, but you know, if you're traveling on the road as a woman, you want to be mindful of things like that. So make sure things match up. Make sure the individual's picture, and Uber and Lyft will show you the picture of the driver, and they'll also give you their license plate number. Make sure all that matches up so that you're not just getting in some random car of somebody that's pretending to be an Uber or Lyft driver. You know, safety first in everything that you do. We certainly want to encourage you to do that. But those are just some of the tips that Mr. Zweig had to share with us today. And Mark, we certainly appreciate you, you know, taking time out and sharing some of your best practices when it comes to travel. I mean, 38 years doing this. I mean, you're not, this is not your first rodeo. So we appreciate that.
No, it's been a long time, man.
So I always remind you of that, but that doesn't matter. It's all good. So, but anyway, we want to thank you for joining us today on this episode of the Zweig Letter podcast. And folks, I just want to remind you that the Zweig Letter newsletter, which has run continuously since 1992, is a great publication. Imagine 12 pages of high level content and information for the design industry: architect, engineer, environmental consultant, planner, landscape architect. No matter what role you serve in this industry, we have information for you. And so we highly encourage you to get a subscription to the Zweig Letter podcast. And best of all, we're giving it away for free. You can get a digital subscription to the Zweig Letter podcast by just going to www.zweiggroup.com and then clicking on the Zweig Letter icon at the top of the website page. There's a word there. It says Zweig Letter. Click on it, and just all you have to do is enter your email address. We don't need anything else. And you'll get every Monday morning, fresh, hot off the presses, a brand new edition of the Zweig Letter. You'll love it. It's perfect. So, I mean, you can't beat it. And it's free. It's free.
You can't even say that about the Krispy Kreme donuts that are fresh. They're not free.
They're not free. No, they aren't free.
This is free and it's fresh.
Yes, exactly. And Mark writes a letter, Mark writes an article every week. He has some new insight. And so what we try to do on this podcast is to share some of that insight with you. And so that Reducing the Stress of Travel was an article from a recent Zweig letter. And that's the kind of quality information that you get from Mr. Zweig and from the rest of the contributors to the Zweig letter. And so I would encourage you to check it out. And I know that our managing editor, Richard Massey, would greatly appreciate having you do that, because he's very proud of this newsletter and the time and effort that he puts into it. It's second to none. So thank you so much for considering that. And also just want to remind you guys, you can download and listen to back issues of the Zweig Letter podcast. We have over 100 episodes now on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, wherever you find or wherever you get your podcast, your preferred podcast tool, you can download the Zweig Letter podcast. And just also give us a review. Let us know what you think about the podcast, what works for you, what doesn't work. Any thoughts or feedback that you have, we would love to hear from you, and share it with your colleagues and coworkers. Remember, sharing is caring. Listen, I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I was here today with none other than our own Mark Zweig, chairman of Zweig Group. We really appreciate you guys. And just remember, we exist to make you more successful. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this Zweig Letter podcast episode. If you want more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about M&A, strategic planning, HR, and marketing your firm, subscribe now to the digital version of the Zweig Letter free of charge. Just visit thezweigletter.com/subscribe and leave your email address. Your free subscription will begin immediately.